Give her just
Yeah.
a minute to turn on the recording.
Oh, I thought I did.
That's what I thought
She
she
just
was
was
doing that.
Yeah. What that question was is, could we give Jamie a minute to turn on the recorder? So be advised that these proceedings are recorded, so anything you say will be recorded. Chair will entertain a motion to set the agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the agenda is adopted, or set. Everybody have a chance to read the minutes of the last meeting and enter any additions, corrections, or deletions?
I had some changes I handed in just now. I understand you had some
I
previous...
did too.
Yes.
Just nickel dimers.
Yes,
basically.
same here. So I would move to approve the minutes from the last meeting as subject to our amendments.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the last meeting as amended. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the ayes have it. First item on the agenda is the Worrell River Project, a request to develop 2009 lot single-family residential subdivision on 87.5 acres located on New Hope Road and Worrell River Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For those in the audience, I'm Shelley DeHart. I'm the project planner for this case. As read into the record, this is referred to as Worrell River Residential Subdivision, Major Development Plan 2019-01. Now, I want to take a moment to talk about the process. So, any proposed subdivision, major subdivisions of 8 lots or more, that can be developed by right, meaning they comply with the LDC and the zoning, they are still required to go through a public process, which is called the Major Development Plan. Now, the intent behind this process is to allow the ability of the city officials and community to view and provide feedback on a future development that will have impact to them. So that is the reason that the city requires this process. And our goal is always to try to get as much dialogue between the community and the development community before it happens. So this request is a request for a subdivision of 209 lots on 87.5 acre parcel. For the record, the parcel ID is 193-219. This development is proposed to have all single-family residential lots. Their design includes open space, tree save, and all the required infrastructure to support this development. So here are 2 maps of the subject property. The map on the lower right is a location map where you see the red star. As you can see, it's north of Daniel Stowe Botanical Gardens on the west side of South New Hope Road. The aerial photograph on the left shows that this is a wooded lot, pretty much undisturbed, with a mix of canopy of evergreens and deciduous trees. There are currently 2 existing single-family residential lots at the end of Worrell River Road. And you can, if you follow the blue line in the middle, you can see, you sort of see their parcels.
There's
there.
nothing on them? It doesn't look like it?
No, there are homes.
Oh, there are
on
homes?
Yes,
Yeah.
there are 2 single-family homes.
We've seen those folks here before. haven't we?
Yeah.
Yes, they have. When the property was annexed and we placed zoning on it, the residents that came
Right.
to the meeting.
I
So
see.
the subject property, as you can see, it has some waterfront. Again, it would be accessed off of New Hope Road. And I'll start going into the design. So the subject property is zoned suburban residential, and as just stated, this was an annexation and zoning that occurred within the last year and a half. The maximum density for this zoning district is 3 dwelling units to the acre. The proposed is 2.39 units to the acre. They are proposing a detached house building type. That is a permitted building type in the zoning district. Other performance standards based on the building type are outlined in this chart, and They range from minimum lot width. They are proposing 2 types. They do meet the minimum of 55, and there's some other lots proposed at 64 feet in width. They meet all of the setback requirements, including the parking pad requirement. Side setbacks are based on the lot width, 20%, and the rear setback is 30. Yes, sir.
I don't understand the proposed zero over there.
Yeah, I'm sorry, what was missing is that should have been 20%, so that is an error in that, yes.
I figured that was an alertness drill for us.
That was, I wanted to see if you really read your packet.
Yeah,
We're
we got
6
it.
feet on the corner, but thank you. So they do meet all of the performance standards with regard to the detached house in that zoning district. Here is the proposed site plan that is also in your packet. Again, it's a mix of lot widths, 55 and 64-foot lot width. We worked with them for some time on the actual street design to make sure there was good connectivity, and also our fire and police wanted to ensure that based on the primary access road in, there were other ways to get around in the development, and they are very happy with this layout. The primary access road from South New Hope Road is 60 feet in width. That would allow parking on both sides of the street. The other secondary streets are proposed at 50 feet in width. That would allow parking on one side of the street. So I'm going to talk a little more about the design. The city LDC requires, which is the Land Development Code, requires a 25% tree save area, which is met in this design. That would result in 21.64 acres of tree save area on the site. They will also be required to provide street trees, which is standard in our development code, as well as yard trees, both front and back. The number of trees are dependent upon the size of the lot. They are required to have an open space area based on the number of lots and so forth. They are required to provide a minimum of 8.73 acres. They are actually providing 18.5 acres of open space area, some of which include a waterfront park, which is just over 4 acres. There are multiple pocket parks that you'll see in the subdivision, as well as an amenity center. They also have a network of greenways, and a portion of that is actually earmarked for part of the Carolina Thread Trail. We have met with the Carolina Thread Trail staff, and we will continue our dialogue with them as we go into further design, if approved, to nail down the actual design and location. But there is a preliminary line shown within the plan.
Yeah, there's a proposed in the plan there.
Segment, yes, and
Okay.
we're still working with them on the exact location.
Okay.
So, again, with street design, we really worked on the street network. The primary road's 60-foot wide, secondary road's 50 feet in width, and the network, of course, still maintains access to the 2 existing homes at the very end of Worrells River, the cul-de-sac there. So utility. So all major subdivisions are required to connect to city utilities, sewer and water. So I want to make a clarification on this. So in the report, I mentioned no capacity. The plant has plenty of capacity to treat. What we are still trying to work on and figure out is the capacity of the infrastructure on the peninsula, and that would include the existing pump stations, their capacity, as well as the connecting infrastructure. The city engineer gave a report to the city council at the retreat that he is conducting a study, and he's been working with the applicants on getting information for them on this, that is actually calculating what's actually being used in the existing system. He plans on going to the state, because the state uses numbers that he says are from the 1950, are very old, and it doesn't take into account new technology and efficiencies. So the plan is that he will continue to work on, our city engineer will continue to work on this study. He will present it to the state, and based on the state opinion about the study, we will be closer to figuring out what required improvements will be needed. Do they have to improve just one pump station, two, or something larger? It is just unclear at this time.
But it's just a matter, is it just a matter of how much, as opposed to if? Because I see this coming before us, and this study isn't conducted yet, so there's an unknown there. What's the worst that could happen, I guess? If
The
this
project would never get built if the infrastructure, if it comes back and the infrastructure that would be required to serve is outside of what they're willing to do.
They being the applicant.
The applicant. So what would really happen is they'll meet with the state, our engineer's doing the study, he'll meet with the state based on that outcome. That will give guidance to the applicants as well as their engineer how we're going forward. So we would have to enter into a developer's agreement with the applicant, and they'll do a study, and it's part of the construction plan sets. If this is approved, they really dig in and do the study, and they'll have to prove to the city engineer that the infrastructure supports their development. So he won't sign off on a permit to the state unless that's been proven.
And how long is that going to? I mean, I know it's the state, so.
Well, that is unclear. Again, the city engineer provided the council this information at the retreat. He's been working.
Which was the end of January?
Yes, which he's been working on this study for a couple of months, and again, it's unclear. I don't have a timeline, but the worst scenario is if it comes back and the state says, no, we don't feel you have that additional capacity in your system, then they'll have to still do a study. They'll do a study and determine what the improvements will be. They'd have to enter into a developer's agreement with the city on, okay, it's agreed, you're going to do this, this, and this. And if they choose not to do that, then they can't go forward. And once approved, there are timelines tied to these approvals. And I believe this one, they're requesting 2 years to get it worked out.
Okay. And it says, one of the conditions is that the developer shall enter into agreement with regard to the water and sewer extensions. Is there
And that's common.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
My question is, if you have to build a pump house, have the plans allowed for that? Or would these plans with the 209, I think it is, houses have to be modified to build a pump house where there's a lot approved?
I'm going to let the applicant address that.
Thought you might. Good answer.
So that would be the best answer, so.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
So with every development that's proposed in Belmont, we have our own adopted TIA ordinance in Chapter 16. This proposed development did reach the required threshold, and they have conducted a TIA study, I should say cities consultant, conducted the TIA analysis, and I'll invite the city's consultant up here to provide you the information related to traffic impacts.
Before you do,
Yes.
I noticed in the proposed conditions, there's nothing related to traffic.
We will make sure that gets added.
Okay. What would it, like, comply with the?
Yeah, to comply with the findings in the
Okay.
draft TIA as approved by NCDOT as
Okay.
well.
Thank you, Shelley. My name is Mackenzie Kean, and I am a civil analyst at Kimley Horn, and we performed the traffic impact analysis for this proposed development. Per the ordinance, we coordinated with the City of Belmont and NCDOT and the developer in order to scope the project and the study itself. The study area consists of 4 intersections along 279, and those include Union New Hope Road, Lake Wiley Road, Worrells River, which is now going to be the site access, and Armstrong Road. There are 3 planned projects that were included in the background of the TIA. Those included first the NCDOT-funded project U5821, which occurs at around Union New Hope Road and north of that on 279. And there were 2 developments also included, and those include McLean and Riverside. The proposed site, as Shelley mentioned, includes 209 single-family homes, and that site is projected to produce approximately 157 trips in the AM peak period and 209 in the PM peak period. Based on our analysis, you can see on the left on these screens the background laneage that was included, and to the right the identified mitigation improvements. So on the right, you can see that we are recommending improvements at Union New Hope Road, the site driveway, and also Armstrong Road, which is currently a roundabout. So to zoom in on those a little more, sorry, this is a little difficult to see, but we are proposing a 225-foot right turn lane on Union New Hope Road, and that extends relatively close to the entrance of that driveway you see here. At Worrells River Road, we are proposing 100-foot turn lanes into the site and a 100-foot right turn lane out of the site. And at the roundabout, we are proposing a through lane starting at the southbound approach. And that approach is going to look fairly similar to what you see on the westbound there, to where you have 2 lanes entering the intersection and 1 can do a full loop around. We're not proposing to add any lanes within the roundabout itself, just 1 approach lane on the southbound that will be able to carry traffic through. And that is the end of our presentation. All of these mitigation improvements have been coordinated with both the city and NCDOT, and they do follow Belmont guidelines.
Now, just to clarify, the mitigation only has to be to the extent that this development would add to what is going on. They're not responsible for the fact that there are other developments and there will be increased traffic caused by those other developments that you highlighted, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And clarify for me, because in our report it said something along the lines of a TIC, the analysis is still under review by NCDOT. So
we met with NCDOT on Monday, and they concurred with all of our improvements. There was the right turn lane at Union New Hope Road. I believe they were going to look into that one. They were still looking at that one intersection because of the NCDOT project there. So there is an NCDOT project occurring at that intersection, and there was some further review because of the last dated TIP designs we had. They were going to confirm a couple of things with us.
So where does that leave us, I guess is my question.
That leaves us with, I guess, an outstanding comment on this one improvement. And I don't know if we received a timeline on that.
No, we have not received a timeline from NCDOT, but again, if we add the condition that it needs to comply with the TIA as approved by NCDOT, NCDOT will have the final say on their roads, exactly what they need. So we do need to add that condition, and it will address this issue.
Did NCDOT make any comments about entering or exiting the development in a curve? I mean, you're right at the apex of the curve. I mean, and somebody that has traffic background can explain to me, is this a safe condition?
I believe that the site distance will have to be confirmed during design as part of receiving a driveway permit. That's, yeah, that's,
Yeah, so, Dan, you're exactly right. I mean, the point is, on this one, it's on the outside of the curve. So that provides better sight distance, actually, so the driver's not having to turn even as far left and right as they would if it was a straight section of road. But-
That is a weird curve, though.
It is,
If you
yeah.
drive it, it's,
Yeah.
you've got to really pay attention and not, pay attention to cars coming and going. And so my second question is 100 feet enough?
Yeah.
Is 100 feet deceleration, acceleration lane, is that enough on each side?
So the deceleration taper will be in addition to the full storage length that's
Okay.
presented here. So this is full lane width storage, and it actually models less than that. So it's extended because NCDOT wanted it bumped up to 100, generally was what their minimum is, but then there will be a bay taper to get out of the through lane and into the turn lane, whether it's the right or the left turn lane. But sight distance will have to be confirmed before a driveway permit will be approved. So yes, that'll be looked at and compared with all the horizontal and vertical issues that are out there.
Okay.
So whose responsibility is it to initiate these changes because of the Worrell project? Is it the Worrell's responsibility?
Yes.
For all those, for Union, for the roundabout, and for their driveway?
Yes, yes. These red arrows are the responsibility of the site to mitigate their traffic impacts.
For that one site, not, the other ones who are coming up don't have anything to do with that.
That's correct.
They're just going to benefit from it.
Or
Or have to do addition to it.
are we at the threshold? That's, you can't,
Add any more?
well, that's the thing, is, have you just, you can't, I don't know if you can speak to this or not, but have we gotten to the point now of the improvements you're making that the next guy is gonna come back and go, I gotta make more, and he might come in sooner. So it's, tear it up, put it down, tear it up again, put it down, I mean, it's,
That's always a component of the overlapping schedules of development. The good thing about this is the DOT project would be in place, assuming all the funding stays as currently programmed in the TIP. And that's one of the other reasons they're wanting to go back and compare this other lane at this one, because it falls directly in the overlap area for the TIP project. The other two south don't, but this one does. So they're wanting to verify all that, recognizing other changes that are taking place in the area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you both.
Thank you. Informative as always.
Yes. All right, so we got that.
So to continue on, so I'm going to take a brief moment to talk about architecture. In your packet, you have some conceptual elevations. The proposed elevations are committing to a mix of materials of brickstone, fiber cement siding, and the use of vinyl only as a trim material. Looking at their conceptual elevations, they meet the requirements that are in our ordinance 4.22 under detached single-family homes. So with that, staff believes as conditioned, it is in compliance with the Land Development Code, and you can add the condition related to the TIA, which is in our LDC, that they would have to do it anyway, so we would make sure that is done. And our recommendation is to recommend approval to the City Council for this project.
Understood. Any questions for staff?
Just one more. I guess the only thing that gives me a qualm or two, is it common for something to be brought before us where there's still a couple of outstanding issues, like with the sewer and what NCDOT is ultimately going to rule upon with the improvements? That could, have some fairly substantial impacts on what ultimately transpires.
Well, yes. So, for example, when we do conditional zoning, sometimes, and I'm going to look at McLean Development, but, I mean, that was a big development, conditional zoning, 810 home commercial. Well, not everything in the infrastructure was figured out by then, and in fact, I think at that time, we didn't have a TIA policy, and the TIA policy was done after its approval. So, as conditioned, they're not going to be able to go forward to NCDOT signs off, they comply. I
Those
think
would
the
be
first
just-
condition is they
Yeah.
have to be in compliance with the city's land development code, which addresses the transportation as well. It says if it comes out of there, they have to build it. So staff is, again, of the opinion that as conditioned,
These conditions are not unlike some of the other conditions that are in here,
that's correct.
so, okay. Just another one of a different slant. Understood.
Belt and suspenders.
Yeah, right, got it. Okay, anything else? Understand the applicants are here, so, Mr. Matt Mandel?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for having us tonight. My name is Matt Mandel with ESP Associates, 3475 Lakemont Boulevard, Fort Mill.
Thank you.
I want to thank Shelley and staff for all their work on this. We've met with them several times and had a lot of coordination, so it's been a lot of effort, a lot of good conversations to bring this forward before you tonight, so definitely appreciate their time, folks at Kimley Horn. We've also had some good conversations with the Thread Trail and the Botanical Garden as well to kind of work together, coordinate on some outstanding items, and just have an understanding of how things are going to move forward in this project. I do want to hit on a couple of things that you asked about in terms of pump station. We are under the impression that we're going to have to serve this site with a pump station, so there would be a pump station on site, so that would not cause a lot to be removed for a pump station. The design of that has not been performed yet, but that's something that would be done moving forward.
So you got a place where you anticipate putting that?
We're anticipating, down in this area somewhere at the end of this cul-de-sac.
Okay.
Again, details of that are not understood fully, but we're suspecting that there would be access to the pump station in between these two lots here.
Okay.
That may need to shift around a little bit, but it's
All
going
right.
to be down in that cul-de-sac somewhere.
Okay, so you got something mapped out. Thank you.
Yep. And then again, to speak to the site distance, that would have to be evaluated as part of the construction document process, so that would be fully understood as well.
You mentioned discussions with the Botanical Garden and whatnot. Have you had any discussions with the other neighbors, specifically the owners of the two residential lots that are,
Yep.
and how have those,
So we did have a neighborhood meeting and had a couple folks there,
Yes.
Botanical Garden, and one of the families down at the end of the cul-de-sac here, and I believe they're actually here this evening. And just talking about conversations, I believe their primary concerns have been locations of the Thread Trail and just the additional traffic and pedestrians walking down there for the Thread Trail, just because they're kind of secluded right now. So again, the conversations with the Thread Trail are ongoing, so the alignment and location of where that goes on the site would be evaluated during the design, and would intend to involve the folks down at the end as well, just to make sure their input is received.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Mandel?
I'm assuming that since the Thread Trail is part of the project, the pedestrian trail should enter public.
I believe, I mean, those would be for the residents, but I don't know if there would be anything that would restrict how you would access those. And Chase is here from Fielding Homes, and let him give good luck.
Yes, another.
Good evening, my name is Chase Curley with Fielding Homes. Represent the landowner, developer, and builder, 6535 Sherman Hills Road, Charlotte, North Carolina, 28210. So the trails in the development, some would remain, predominantly for the private residents because they meandered up around their lots and their homes, but those that would connect the Thread Trail from the southern portion of the property up to where we would connect it to the northern portion, that would be public. We would just need to designate that probably more clearly on our plan.
But I mean, in reality.
Yeah, I mean, you're not gonna, access cards, right?
Yeah.
But there's no parking
There's no-
provided in the
correct.
neighborhood for the Thread Trail, for
No,
people to come
there's
into?
not.
They should park at the other
Correct.
Yeah.
sites.
Yeah, the idea is that this is a pass-through. Right there. Just wanted to be clear.
Would that have to be designated? No
that?
parking for the Threadtail users? I'm just asking for the sake of the
If it
people.
became a
It would help
problem.
the community if we
Yeah,
had
that's what I'm
that.
thinking.
If it became a
That'd be
problem.
something we would probably look to identify. and-
I would just wonder if there'd be any prohibition about that from the city standpoint. I'm trying to look out for the people down there that, you know, oh, we can get to the Thread Trail by just going in here.
Well, I mean, that can happen in almost any neighborhood, you know, they're designing the streets, there's an amenity center not too far from here where somebody really wanted to grab the trail, but right now, we have the Seven Oaks
Yeah.
trailhead or the Botanical Gardens where people can start on the trail, and so
Yeah.
this doesn't connect to anything to
Yeah,
the
it's
north yet.
isolated.
So it's just a small segment, if somebody's going through and saying, hey, I'm gonna keep going, it will end at the north boundary of this property at this time.
Is the community gated?
No.
Okay, just curious.
What was the question in here?
If it was
Was the
community
community
gated.
gated? I was just.
Oh, right. no.
Be public streets.
Oh, yeah, public right away. Gotcha.
Just for the record, with Patrick Larkin with Stowe Botanical, as we were talking about conditions for the conceivable approval, that we have made commitments to work with Stowe Botanical as far as the property boundary to have written language in our declaration to prohibit access through that common open space between our property and theirs, that we would perform various inspections and maintenance, and include fines and such policing we need to do to make sure that our residents aren't trespassing.
Okay.
As well as maintain connected access to their paved road. It's not clearly shown here, but it would come off of the World's River Road realignment.
So you can kind of see today, there's this clearing here in the trees, that's their service drive.
Good. Any other questions for Mr. Kelly? Thank you, gentlemen. Since we talked about the Botanical Garden, Mr. Larkin, would you like to add a few comments?
I thought we were going in order with the comments.
Chair's discretion, sir.
Patrick Larkin, I'm the Executive Director with Daniel Stowe Botanical Garden, 6500 South New Hope Road here in Belmont. So thank you for allowing me to talk tonight. We've had a wonderful opportunity working with the staff of Fielding Homes to address our concerns both on the access to our construction and delivery entrance. And so the final decisions about how that's going to be designated and everything else will all get worked out. And then, as was stipulated, we've also had discussions about how to secure our property, or at least mitigate the issues with residents being so close to the property line now, and essentially very easy access to our parking lot, and then direct access to our growing center and things like that. So in lieu of actually being able to fence that entire border, which would be really nice, they offered those concessions in terms of the language and the policing and everything else that would be done by the homeowners association.
Very good.
So, thank you.
Anything for Botanical Garden? Well, since how the Thread Trail was also mentioned, recognize Mr. Barnack. Brett Barnack.
Thanks, Chair Brennan, Planning Commission members. Brett Barnack, Director, Carolina Thread Trail, 4530 Park Road, Charlotte, North Carolina, 28209. I'm really just, you've heard a lot about the trail. I'm just going to kind of echo that. Obviously, the Seven Oaks Preserve Trail is one of our most popular that we have. I think all of you know that the parking lot is always full down there. And so this was really just a great opportunity, and we're appreciative of Belmont and Fielding to take advantage of this opportunity and get some extension to that trail. Our goal, this is what we call one of our priority corridors of going farther north along Catawba Creek, Catawba Cove, and really working way beyond this. Obviously, we have to work with various property owners, and we have pretty ambitious plans, but every little segment along the way is key to this. So it's really just more me being on record to say that we appreciate the support and the partnership, and to echo what the others said before me. We're going to continue to work to make sure that the placement of the trail is appropriate, And also in that, being very respectful of the neighbors that were just mentioned who live down at the end too, because I know they do have some concerns. So understanding the placement and making sure that that's respectful of their location down there. But it's good that we had this opportunity to extend our trail, even a short distance, very key as we look at plans trying to go north.
Yeah, I was looking at where the proposed, at least on the document that you provided us, had a little white dotted line there that showed it going across the cul-de-sac at that point. So
there are some plans to go out there with the other partners to kind of ground truth it a little bit and walk around. And again, it's about trying to make sure we get the right placement, not only for being respectful of the neighbors, but just the longevity of the trail as well, making sure it's more higher and drier and things like that. So, again, a good opportunity to extend the trail a short distance. And we have situations in other parts of our region where there are signs that discourage parking in the private development, and there's a trailhead out in front. In this case, it would be obviously our main trailhead along Oak Road. So those public access areas are provided so you don't have the problem with people using the private development.
right in through here. I can't tell from this chart here what the distance is between the last two lots down there at the end and this, I guess that's the cul-de-sac down there.
So 1 inch equals 200 feet.
I think the totality is a little over a quarter mile of trail, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I'm talking about just,
Yeah. But
how much is that?
1 inch equals. Yeah. So it's 400.
What I'm getting at is it looks like if you took those last two lots off, okay, and made it 207, the house, instead of 209, you give a little more space for the people to walk through there and not bother the neighbors on either side. I don't know how you all feel about that. It's a couple less homes, but in your planning, it seems to me that that might be something you look at. I'm trying to figure out these folks using the trail and eventually going through there. You could put up some, what do you call it, screening? Landscape screening.
There are plans to put some screening on.
Well, I couldn't see that on here because the two lots are, one of them's even far closer in than the other. So I just can't tell if you got enough room to put the screening up to protect both the neighbors who are already there and the ones that are coming in.
I'll let Chase talk a little bit.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about this, and a lot of times, I guess, concerns you're bringing up and what we brought up before, they're parallel for not only our development, our neighborhoods, but also for the Thread Trail. So having that screening, they don't want to live next to folks that are just, a very active pedestrian trail. So we want to make sure that there's ways to screen that and kind of protect that value. So we're open to committing to making, landscaping buffer dedications along that property line to protect that view shed on either side, both for the residents and the back of the neighborhood now, as well as our future lots.
You got enough room to do that down there?
We're at a conceptual stage now. I think right now we do, but we'd have to do a little more engineering to understand the grade and sort of the totality of the BMP.
Well, I think that would be one of the conditions that I'd like to see added in, that there's going to be screening in for both the existing neighbors and the ones who are going to be down there.
We're happy to make that commitment.
That'd be good. Just thought.
Good thought.
I thought so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see here. All right, we got some other public comment. I think we've taken care of the Thread Trail folks. Now we got some public comment. I'd like to hear from the neighbors, Mr. and Ms. Byers.
My name's Ed Byers. My wife's Sandy Mack. We live at 266 Worrells River Road. We're one of those neighbors down there. I'm not real good at this. I'm usually at work. pay off to talk a little bit.
It's all right, take your time.
We have a lot of concerns. I hope nothing is taken negatively. I don't mean that, but we've been down in the woods for quite a while by ourselves, so progress is good, and I'm trying to keep that in my mind.
Big change, isn't it?
We've got, well, I guess Tim doesn't now, but I have a pontoon boat. You hook that onto a pickup truck, you're starting to talk about a small semi. And I would like to know whether maybe I had to have somebody come in and do some excavating or construction, and they would have a trailer, whether I'm going to have access or whether I'm going to have a car sitting here and a car sitting there and I got to thread the needle to get in and out. Is the fire trucks, which I'm sure everybody's looked at that. But I've been through some new developments, and you don't have a lot of room for error, you know, because you're worrying about the dogs and the kids and oncoming traffic. So that was one of my thoughts is how easy is it going to be for me to get in and out, or my neighbor, and so on. I would like to know, and the gentleman with Fielding have been nice and everything, but I think I wanted to make sure that we've talked about this a little bit, but that these concerns are right in the open.
I'm sorry, you say you did talk to these folks about it?
Yeah, we've talked vaguely. We haven't talked in depth.
Okay.
We haven't had a chance.
Yeah.
Because of my work and so.
Yeah, sure, it's hard.
My neighbor wasn't available at the first meeting and so on, but he's present tonight. One of the first things I asked was, I have a pretty expensive, and it turned out to be a great well. I put in right after I bought, and some years back. And all this starting from the road, and I'm familiar with the land we're talking about, has a lot of water come down through there. No, I don't know exactly where my well water comes from, but I don't think anybody else would be able to tell me either. But I have a feeling that there's a possibility that that's where some of my water's coming from, into a vein somewhere that I've gotten into. So I have a concern for that. Well, we've talked about, well, yeah, you can hook up to city water, but I have a well. You know, I've got 5-10 grand in a well.
Sure.
So that was a concern. I'm wondering, and I didn't know it until a little bit earlier there, about where this pump was going to be. Am I going to be listening to a pump run? I'm sure it's not a Detroit diesel sitting out there just going to town. It's some innovation and things, but is it something I'm going to have to deal with all the time? That was a concern with the noise factor.
Sir, if I can add that I lived across the street from one of those pump stations in Virginia Beach and couldn't hear it, depending on, it was in a house, a brick house.
Oh, really?
Because based on what these gentlemen were saying, there's going to be a number of houses in their development itself that would be closer to the pump station than you all.
If it's an enclosed pump station, the one in our neighborhood is not enclosed, and it is loud.
Would it be an enclosed pump station?
Typically, they are enclosed.
Yeah, but typically, is it
It hasn't been designed.
Okay, well.
Typically, they are enclosed.
Because the ones that are not enclosed are loud.
Sounds like another condition.
Or there'd also be a lot of elevation and vertical barriers.
Yeah.
Look at the
Yeah.
Or are they electric, or are they?
Here's the two.
How do they run, all electric there?
Oh, they are? I'm sorry. I thought they were there and there. They're there and there. Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, got it. All right, go ahead, sir.
There's a question that popped in my mind a little bit earlier. Don't know a lot about the stipulations and so on, but legally, how close can they build to my property is what I'm wondering. I didn't ask you guys this, but it's something that just popped into my mind. Is there a state law, a Belmont law?
Well, there are setbacks, and they were described earlier, so many feet for a lot. Now, I'll have to ask the staff to give me a little help on, because there's a cul-de-sac there, and I don't know what the limitations are and how close the cul-de-sac can be to the properties there, to the access to the properties. That, the roundabout down there at the bottom,
Yeah.
or lower left?
So with regard to the question about how close can they build, you have a shared property line. I don't know if you're the north house or the south house, which one you're on.
I'd be the bottom end.
The bottom, okay. So technically, you have a shared property line, then they would, if they were going to build directly next to you, they would have to meet their setbacks. And depending on the lot width, it's 20%.
But if it's not a lot,
There's a right-of-way there.
But this is, yeah, this is shown as open space and part of the corridor of the Carolina Thread Trail, but you asked theoretically, I believe, was your question.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't set in stone because we talked before the meeting about it, how things can change. But this is what I'm seeing now. So I gotta go with that. And that cul-de-sac would be all but touching my gate, you know? And then you're gonna put a thread trail in, which is another concern I have.
So I just want to share that part of the cul-de-sac and the street design is based on to ensure that you have great access as well to there. If you had a trailer, you could turn around in the cul-de-sacs. We have minimum requirements for that and lot width as well, so.
Well, I would,
it has to accommodate a fire truck as well as a garbage truck for a turnaround and so forth.
Well, I don't know what size that cul-de-sac would be, but I would never get a 24-foot pontoon boat turned around any ones I've seen, let's put it that way.
It's tight.
But I'm sure that could change, you know, it'd be a bigger cul-de-sac. Thread trail, that's what we brought up. I'm an outdoorsman, I love hiking. I mean, I think it's a great thing having that. But as I see it now, and this is what I have to go by, if I back out my fence or back out my driveway, and it's called, or this thread trail's going somewhere right at that cul-de-sac. I mean, my dog's gonna be barking and barking, and their dogs are gonna be barking at my dog, and that's all it's gonna be from one thing, you know, day in to day out. We talked something about the screen fence. What, I don't know exactly the screening or whatever.
Talking about landscape screening, putting some kind of plantings in, some trees that would block the view from the people, both for your vision and for the vision of the people who live in the homes down at the end there. It's like some, we got, what do we call them? Green giant, what's those plants? Thank you, arborvitae, that the deer don't eat, by the way. You get the wrong ones, they'll eat them, but those they don't. I've tested that.
Would that be in a manner like I've seen it just down the street, they build a mound and put trees on it, they have a roll hill with a mound, or would it just be trees?
Could be that, or it could be just trees planted in the ground and grown up, but.
Well, we don't disturb that area, there's existing vegetation as well.
That's all the tree save area.
Well, my biggest concern is having a little bit of room to be able to move, turn around, and not having to, you know, not that I'm not friendly, I like to wave at the people walking on the trail and all talk, but there's times I like a little privacy.
I understand.
Another thought was, if we have an emergency, right now we call the county. Who do we call after this happens? Where is our assistance at? Do I call Belmont Police? Or, you know, does this change what's going on?
This does not change, your property is still in the unincorporated area of the county, so it doesn't change your services and who you call at all.
Okay.
What typically happens is if you have a call and it's an emergency and they think the South Point Fire Department will get there, they all talk to each other and they'll end up probably all responding to help you out, but you still maintain your direct call to county services.
Would he be able to keep his well?
Yeah.
Your well that you talked about?
Well, yes, and we would make sure that when designing is going through engineering, that if that is looked, well, tell our engineer to make sure that that is looked at as well, to ensure that consideration to impacts to your well and your well water is
That's a
taken
big
care
one
of.
I'm worried about.
Sure.
And it was brought up here tonight, I will try to make this short and get out, is the parking, how about the thread trail? I mean, they love that thread trail, they're right. I mean, I hear them and so on and see them in the parking lot. Are they gonna come down the cul-de-sac and park? You're not gonna.
Well, that's
be-
why I asked that question, sir.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that, and I think we ought to condition this thing so that there is no thread trail parking in that cul-de-sac. We should put signs that there's resident parking only. And I would put that in as a condition here, that, they can't park on either side of the road down there. That's the main road that they can't, is this the main road that's 60 feet wide down there?
Yep.
No?
I think it is.
The main road is 60 feet, but I believe when it turns down to that little cul-de-sac, I believe it drops down to 50.
I don't think so.
Still shows it in gray.
I don't
60
know.
appears to stop the clock.
That last spit down there ought to be 60 foot wide as well, otherwise you're gonna have people parking out there.
The schematic plan, does it?
Hard, you can't read it. It says right there, but
I believe the plan right down here is 60, but I believe
I
that
think that's
drops down to,
50.
I believe that was shown.
It would seem with that
It
curve.
drops down to 50. No, they're talking about this segment.
Talk about the section right in front of Mr. Byers' home.
Make it 50 when you need to.
What about that facilities
60,
places you
It
talk
just
about?
seems weird, this
No
curve,
parking
this
there?
turn, making a turn like
station?
that.
No,
Does
the
it change when it
facilities
makes the
something you
turn?
said.
yeah, it looks like.
Amenities?
Well, it
Amenities.
looks like 60.
Amenities.
Yeah, I don't know what.
My question is, or my suggestion is, that last little spit of road there that runs down to the cul-de-sac ought to be a no parking on either side there. Otherwise, you will have people coming down and parking there to use that third trail.
Well, there's issues of resident parking. Because the 60-foot right-of-way is designed for parking on the street, if I'm not.
Yeah.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah, provided that's the case and that it's allowed for, we're happy to provide no parking signage down by the cul-de-sac past the last home.
Yeah. Somewhere in there to make sure that that's kept. Yeah, I got it. So the 60 feet is to allow parking on both sides. I got it. So maybe you don't want to make that 60 feet wide.
Yeah, so but what he's saying is that beyond that last home,
Yeah.
you put the signage.
So,
And the wider right-of-way provides for a wider turning radius.
so I misunderstood and I misspoke. So that last section of road should be parking on only one side. Is that correct?
He's saying-
To minimize the amount of people that park.
Beyond the last
50,
one,
you
he's
can
saying
only
no
park on
parking at all.
60-foot right-of-way for parking would be allowed on both sides. Now, we don't allow parking in the cul-de-sac
Yeah.
anyway, the fire department prohibits that. But on the street, the 60-foot right-of-way, it does accommodate parking on both sides.
So for that last little spit then, let me back up. Would it be more advantageous to minimize the amount of people who are coming down there to park to use the thread trail to allow to make it a 50-foot wide so they can park on only one side?
Well, I thought I understood you to say that you'd say
Yeah,
there's no
as opposed to getting
parking
the
there.
design requirements and reducing maybe the potential turning radius of the cul-de-sac, we kept it at what it's designed for now. We're happy to provide for no parking on either side of the street. Signage, as long as it's provided for in the zoning, past that last lot.
Yeah, I understand. I'm talking about the people who are going to use that up to the east of the cul-de-sac. If you allow parking on both sides of the road, I anticipate, because as someone stipulated earlier, the one at Seven Oaks is always full, that perhaps if we minimize the opportunity for parking down at that end, that would deter people from parking down there. In other words, make that last little spit of road 50 feet wide. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think what that does is it creates a constraint that reduces the cul-de-sac width, which is
Really?
a concern that he's mentioned. So I also think if folks from the thread trail or those that don't live in the neighborhood are parking in front of these folks' homes, I think they're going to be as much of a deterrent of that as the signage would be.
Could be, could be. I guess I don't understand why minimizing width of the road affects the size of the
The
cul-de-sac.
cross-section of the roadway's changed.
Okay,
The pavement width of the road changes.
okay.
Turn around for
I'll
the
take your word for it.
cul-de-sac.
I don't understand it, but I believe you. Okay, sir, do you have any other concerns? We'll make sure we get them all.
I wanted to just add that the years I've lived there, and you all talked about the safety of that turn could be a lot safer if people just do the speed limit, but we can't help that a lot. But I've seen cars come across my driveway and land in the neighbor at the end there. He's got cars in his yard all the time. I have to pick up my signs, my reflectors, because I have to have them to be able to see in the dark there. Getting in, it's a little tricky. But it is being I live there, I know this for a fact, it is a very dangerous area, and I want to make sure you know that, which you probably already do. And the best thing I've heard tonight was come out of you, sir, about backing everything up a little bit. I think that would help a lot down here, down on our end.
Sure,
And that's what it's all about, and I thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, sir, appreciate it. Mary Ann Dixon.
Can I step in after her, because I'm a neighbor that can sign in?
Sure.
Thank you.
You bet.
I'm Mary Ann Dixon. We own the Dixon Farm, which is about 200 acres just north of the property. I only have about two things. One, I like the idea of the turn lanes going into the subdivision. I'm still concerned about New Hope. There's a lot of the traffic study that's showing Union New Hope Road and this road. There's a lot of New Hope, not that long, but probably 5 miles in between that's still down to the 2 lanes. And I know there's some project, DOT, we don't know who's responsible, but it seems to me it would be great for somebody to get all this organized so we don't do this and that and then piecemeal, we're going to do New Hope Road, because it's going to happen someday. I would like to know what it is. And I also love the thought, you were talking to Botanical Gardens about putting some signage or something to kind of say, this is protected land, this is not subdivision. My concern is we have 200 acres of beautiful woods. A few people are allowed to hunt, not many people. It's mostly me and the deer. And I don't want to encourage all the neighbors that move in over there to think that they can just go out there and hunt or whatever at will. I can only paint so many trees purple. So whatever signage you're willing to do, I would love to be put up on our
We're happy to
side.
do the same as we committed to with the Botanical.
Great. That's what I would like. Thank you.
Good, thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Tim Landwehr, 268 Wells River Road. I live next door to Ed. Be down there 17 years next month. I got some questions. I've looked at this. I wasn't in the green area. I couldn't read it on the paper. What is that? This is my house.
This is tree save area and open space and green area.
So
That's what
that's
you're
public.
speaking
You own it.
to.
Field you own it.
Yes, the homeowners association is
There's no one's
responsible.
building there.
I'm sorry, sir.
There's no houses.
No, not in the green area. These are the colored here, the yellow is the closest lot.
Do you know Rutherford Electric has right away to the electric pole that comes across the water? It powers our houses.
Okay.
They have to have access to that pole.
Yeah, we don't intend to disrupt.
Well, there's gotta be, we gotta get trucks.
Yeah, I think the road networks will provide better.
But I don't know what Rutherford Electric, I don't know what is it 30 feet, is it 15 feet?
It's not a dedicated, based on the boundary survey, it's not a dedicated right-of-way. They have an easement that allows them to serve the property through our property in some manner.
Because it goes right, they drive right along my fence to get to that pole. It's the only thing above ground down there, everything else is open. Okay. I am in the process of buying a Class A motorhome. So, can I get the diameter on this cul-de-sac right here by my house?
We'll get the information from
The pavement's 47 feet wide for half of it, so you're about close to over 9 feet of pavement.
Yeah, circle, both of my driveways. They're pretty big. I know Stowe's is gonna get a lot of people across there. It's just gonna happen to do now. Mrs. Dixon, that is prime hunting ground. Deer gotta go somewhere, that's what we're gonna do. You got anything else here? Again, on that corner, I gotta pull out of my driveway. And I've helped with accidents there. And that thing just goes like this. They're doing 45, 50 miles an hour, and they're right in front of Early's house.
Yeah.
That corner's right in front of their house.
I think that the changes to the highway there will probably eliminate that, or minimize it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's about all I got.
Well, good.
It'd be nice if we could get a blow-up. Okay, I don't know where the trail's gonna go with.
I don't think they do yet either.
So because of
So
the
if you-
houses, you're gonna be walking through somebody's backyard.
Maybe, probably
Does
not.
anyone have an issue? You can have, you
Here
can
you
have
go.
mine.
You bet. Good. Okay, Mr. Early and Ms. Early.
Our questions have pretty much been answered. We live directly across the road.
Okay. All right, great, sir. Thank you. Okay.
I mean, I guess just to get the discussion started, I'll make a motion.
Yeah, go ahead. You move to?
I move to recommend approval, subject to the conditions set forth, subject to the following additional conditions. Compliance with the TIA study, screening on the thread trail, an enclosed pump station, erection of signs regarding resident parking only, no parking past the last home on the cul-de-sac. Those are the ones I would suggest. I know Neil has discussed removing the last two houses there on the lots
If
on
they
the
have the
edge.
screening, that'll be sufficient.
Okay, then I would move to recommend approval subject to those conditions.
Is there a second?
Moving the two houses?
No.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? What did you?
Can I back up?
Yeah, sure. We can amend the motion.
Well, I'll ask the builder a question. Do you plan on building this in one phase?
No, it'd be a lot of development at once. So it would be, we know we have to deliver access to the pump station early, so it's going to require developing down to the end of the cul-de-sac, more than likely, in some fashion, all at once.
And based off the terrain that we see, and next time somebody puts one, it'd nice to have, not what the contours are, not just,
Some numbers.
just some, 10
feet or something. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. It's very, we've got a creek going through here, and most developers with this type of project, they strip the, and, you do a balanced cut and fill, and then you start terracing the homes. And my concern is stormwater runoff during construction, which is a big problem on this in this county, and it's a big problem on this side of the county. Lake's filling up with a lot of silt, and I just want to know, I know you can sit there and tell me that you're going to go by the regulations, but Gaston County regulations aren't as good as it could be. We'd like to protect the lake as much as we can, and I just know how these, you can watch and go down New Hope Road and see how all the developers are doing it. They're just ripping it all the way down, cutting 10, 20 feet of fill, and it's a great big red clay moonscape, so to speak. And that's why I asked you, were you doing it in phases, or are you going to do it all at one time?
It's not, financially financially on our part to develop more than we need. And we only have 2 lot sizes, and so we're only going to probably put lots down in 50 lot phases. But in times like utilities, until we get through that engineering, we don't know exactly what we can restrict it to. Given, if we put our sewer line down to the pump station, we have to have phase 3 power, you gotta build a road all the way down to it. And so there just becomes, it's our goal to minimize that expense and minimize that development all at once, but as much of it as we can. But there are things that we can't predict until we get further into the engineering.
We've had several major blowouts at construction sites that have just silted up coves on Lake Wiley, and I would encourage you to do a little more than the minimum required in making sure that there's no runoff. You're going to be back outside the buffer zone quite a ways anyway, because you've got land there. But that water will find its way. So when you're building along these other areas here, that the barriers that you put up, I would hope that the silt fences would be sunk and not just erected, you know what I'm saying?
I do.
Okay. And that there might be places where you need to have more than one silt fence?
Yeah,
That
we're used to seeing where you have double row fence with wire backing and
Okay.
certainly,
Well,
into the ground.
The fences are great if they're not, but it falls down when they're not maintained. And that's the concern that we have, and it's,
We have a dedicated third-party erosion control inspector. It may be a requirement of the county, I'm not sure, sometimes it's in some counties, sometimes not, but it's a company policy we have.
Good.
And they inspect all of our sites, they record all our NPDS logs, that's available on site.
Do they inspect the silt fence too?
All the perimeter, all the erosion control devices, the ponds and the silt fence.
I don't mean to be
I mean, it keeps us
facetious.
out of trouble, and that's, we'll be happy to
Yeah.
commit to having that third-party inspector.
Okay. Yeah. We're both on the Lake Wiley Marine Commission, so we're a little concerned about that sort of
I can
thing.
understand.
Okay, good. Thank you, sir. Anything else? Okay, good. Any other questions? No, discussion.
I would just the motion's been made and seconded, but I would encourage, and it seems like we're hopefully on the process of doing that you all are going to be neighbors with these folks in the two lots, so I just encourage you to be good neighbors and, have discussions and dialogues about your concerns and work with each other, because, progress is,
As you indicated,
good
thing.
It is a good thing, but I think we've had some legitimate concerns expressed, and just, try and be collegial and work with each other going forward.
Okay. Call the question. All in favor of the motion on the table, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And the motion is carried. Thank you for your discussion, your presentations, and what have you.
We don't need a consistency, do we?
Okay, let's move to the next item on the agenda. Fine, we'll go ahead and do that. Okay, this is an interesting one because has to do with removing trees that were previously approved.
Who will speak for the trees?
There you go. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Your orange shirt on.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, good evening, board, residents. My name is Melissa Lockamy. I am a planner for the City of Belmont Planning Department. And tonight we have before you...
Can we...
Just wait till we clear.
I know, I was like...
Okay, good, go ahead.
Okay. So tonight we have before you a request to amend the approved planting plan for the Stone Manor neighborhood. This is MDP 2019.02, and the Stone Manor neighborhood is adjacent to the north of Keener Boulevard, just east of South Central Avenue, and behind the Stone Manor estate. So before we really dive into the request, I thought we'd talk about the process and why this is before you this evening. The neighborhood has been working for several months with some problems that they have had with their required street trees. And they have submitted a request to staff. As staff considered the request, we realized it applies to the neighborhood requirements that were in place when the neighborhood was approved, and the land development standards at that time date back to the 1990s. So this neighborhood was approved under
an older set of regulations. They're not in place currently. As we further considered the matter, we realized it was across the entire neighborhood, not specific to single properties. Therefore, a variance was not the feasible path for consideration. We contemplated this and we came to, as our staff opinion, that the major development plan process is the way for the community to make their request, for the planning board to review and vet the request, and make a recommendation to City Council for final approval. So how did we get here? Like I said, the subdivision was originally approved in 2001. We did a lot of research and we found where the streets were built, Wisteria Lane, or Wisteria Street in particular, was built with a narrow 30-foot right-of-way, which is basically entirely paved. There's no dedicated planting strip or sidewalk in that area as we would require today. So the streets were built and the trees were planted, then the homes were built. There was also some changes in this time where the development changed hands and the product type has changed as well. So there's areas that maybe were planned for apartments or condos that were then subdivided for single-family home construction. And this resulted in street trees throughout the neighborhood, and some of which were ended up being really close to the foundation of the houses. This is a map from the submittal, and it shows the breakdown of the distance from the trees to the homes. And you'll see on the east side, Wisteria Lane in purple, where several of the trees are less than 10 feet from the foundation of the house. So as I said, the neighborhood has worked hard. They've documented the entire tree inventory of their neighborhood. They have consulted with tree care professionals and got arborist recommendations. And their request is essentially to remove the 17 most problematic trees that are closest to the houses. And they're ultimately asking to substitute the existing tree canopy that has been voluntarily planted and maintained on not only the common open space, but on the private properties. So staff has included analysis in your agenda packet. We have found that there were 82 street trees planted, and 17 are proposed for removal without replacement per the arborist recommendation, resulting in 64 street trees to remain and to be maintained by the neighborhood association.
Wait a minute.
They've also provided a neighborhood inventory where they have documented 191 additional trees planted. Because some of those are screening material, staff's opinion that 147 of those can count as actual canopy replacement, appropriate in that more urban environment.
The numbers don't add up. Was there 65 trees to remain?
The clarification is that.
The one that they,
The 17 are without replacement. There's some that are being proposed that will be replaced.
Oh, okay. So that's the extra one.
I understand the
got
question.
it.
So
Okay, good.
it really results in 17 removed without replacement.
Okay.
Okay? And the 147 of those count as additional tree canopy.
Good.
Okay? Now, in your agenda packet, you will see the breakdown of percentages. And we have found that the total canopy, including the additional plantings, results in approximately 51% of the tree canopy through the neighborhood. The total canopy after removal, those not being replaced, results in about 45% of the tree canopy for that neighborhood. So that is pretty much in line with what we get with today's development standards. We have, as you heard, about a 25% tree safe area for new developments. In addition to the street tree plantings and other required plantings, staff has found this to be in line with what results from today's development. For those reasons, we find it a reasonable request, and staff recommends approval.
What's going to happen to the trees taken up?
So those trees taken up will be just ground in the normal, the recommended tree removal process. And in some cases, there's 8 feet of yard area. So the stumps will be removed and the ground will be allowed to recover, and it'll just be that small area between the edge of the pavement and the homes.
So, I have a question. Yeah. So the trees that are being removed are street trees are they in the right of way or not in the right of way?
So, particularly along Wisteria, no, they're not in the right.
So they're on private property?
Yes.
They were supposed to be street on the right of way, but because of the change, they ended up not being, is my understanding.
Yeah, no, the right of way is always 30 feet, so they're always planted outside of the right of way on private property, it seems like.
Or there are some situations where, for different factors, there's street trees or front yard trees, that function as street trees that are not in the right of way in some situations, but.
Yeah, so I guess so those trees were supposed to be planted by the previous developer as part of the approved plan?
Yes.
Okay.
And then they changed the plan.
Got it. So those were the existing trees that were planted, they were part of the original development that was planted. Additional trees have been planted on private property. So, but the trees that were planted as part of the original plan were protected trees. The new trees that have not been planted voluntarily are not protected trees. So what we are agreeing to is that the new trees that are planted voluntarily, they would count as the canopy, but they would remain unprotected?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
So then,
The fact that they were voluntarily planted and voluntarily maintained gives us comfort that they will continue to do so. And the fact that there's so many, like the more square footage gained gives us comfort with that recommendation.
okay.
So that was my question, and maybe I was just unclear on the numbers. I always said I went to law school, so I wouldn't have to do math. But just so I'm clear, overall, even taking out the 17 trees, the net canopy will increase because of the voluntarily planted trees.
It already is.
Well, right. They will be left on net more canopy than originally required.
Then required.
Okay, all right. Just want to make sure.
So, the only thing I'll say is this, is that we always write documents for not the people that are in the room today.
Yes.
But for the guy that's coming 15 years down the road. And so, everybody here seems like a good steward. Everybody that's from here, from the neighborhood, seems like a good steward and is planting trees and is increasing the canopy, and I'm a total advocate of that. I don't worry about you per se. I worry about what happens in 10, 15 years if a new batch of residents moves in and decides they don't want trees.
You want us to leave the room?
Well,
It's on their property, there's nothing you can
Yeah, there's
say.
not, it kind of leaves us it leaves the city in a place where the tree canopy issue kind of is now left unprotected in that particular neighborhood. I don't know if there's a way to address that, but I think that's the natural question that arises.
Well, when does it have to remove, you're going to have 45%.
No, but I'm just looking at the numbers.
Yeah.
And so there's 24% of private tree plantings that are unprotected, looking at this chart. So you take the 24 from the 45, we'll have 21% of protected trees in the neighborhood.
Correct.
Enough the street trees to remain.
Currently 27 if they,
Well, but we just want to we're just trying to figure out what's protected and what's not protected.
So,
Right.
yeah, so it could, I don't know how you address that.
These are what's protected.
Is the HOA then,
21%.
could you make the HOA responsible for maintaining a 45% canopy, or whatever the base minimum canopy is for that HOA? I don't know, that's like minutia. So, I don't know.
So
how you
what was the
address
original percentage?
Required.
it. Required, that's actually a good point.
under the different set of standards,
Let's go to the different set of standards. What was the original?
they had large growing street trees like every 10 to 30 feet on center.
The question was
I don't think there was a percentage.
Well, no, what I'm saying is you calculated the percentage of
No, what was the required percentage for the development, is what I'm asking.
They may not have had one.
So there was none?
No,
Yeah.
but what they
So
were
we're
required
ahead.
to plant
We're ahead
did
of the
result
game. You're ahead,
in
yeah. We're ahead of the game.
27%, I think is the number you're looking for. Like,
No, I was
we
just-
didn't have the same
No,
calculations as we do today, but the
the
required
metrics were
street
different.
trees resulted in 27%. So what was required at that time, tree plants, the tree canopy that was gained from the street tree plantings was 27%.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's what it was. They were required to have some trees, but there was not a...
There wasn't a number sitting out there.
Right, okay, that's okay.
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
So basically, what we're doing is correcting a condition that our predecessors failed to anticipate when they allowed the change to be made and didn't change the plantings. So they didn't muster the uh-oh squad at the time.
They didn't even know to.
We're doing it now. Okay.
That's why we've got our crack staff.
That's right. That's why we're going to correct staff on this thing. Any other questions for staff on this? We have one public comment from, I'm sorry, Ms. Blankenship.
I'm Luann Blankenship. I live at 412 Gardenia Street in Belmont. I'm the president of the HOA, so I'm representing the owners that are making this request.
Sure.
And to go back and give you some clarification, the street Wisteria that has the majority of the trees that are a problem started off as a private right-of-way, okay? When it was going to be condominium buildings on that street, there weren't enough driveway connections for it to be public. So it was all going to be on private property. So technically, there probably should have never been a street tree requirement on a private street anyway. And the trees got planted, the plan changed, the street became public, the houses got built. On that particular street, the houses got built so close to the right-of-way that there wasn't even room for a sidewalk that had to be taken out, or they were going to have to rip up the front porches off the houses. So the whole street's been a mess ever since it got changed, and we're just trying to correct the problem for the homeowners. I mean, these are trees that are going to be 60 feet tall and 40 feet wide, and they're 7 feet from people's houses. The arborists have told us by the time we trim these trees at maturity, we're probably going to kill them anyway. And right now, if we take them down at this stage, it's going to probably cost us half of what it's going to cost to take them down when they're mature trees. They're already beginning to damage homes. They're hitting the sides of them, the roofs, the gutters. People are worried about them underneath the foundation. So this is the stage to try to correct it. And this is the first time the HOA's had to maintain these trees. We only took the common area over 2.5 years ago. So this was a nightmare neighborhood as far as development goes. You know, we started off with, my house was the first one completed by Sam Stowe in 2004, and the last house was finished probably in 2015, but then it took the developer a year to get all the infrastructure approved and finished to turn it over to the HOA. So, and the majority of the people that have the tree problems are sitting in this room tonight.
We hope to help you solve that.
Well, I just have one question.
Okay.
And I appreciate this, because when I lived in Winston-Salem, I ended up in a house that had some trees that were too close, and I cut them down. So I totally understand the problem, because I was freaked out, like, well, what if they blow over? What if, I understand. My only question was, you said, well, we definitely have to get rid of the ones that are less than 10 feet from the house. Absolutely. We want to get rid of the ones that are 10 to 14 feet from the foundation of the home. That's fine. But you've also mentioned that there are some, that are close, but they're not, you're only going to cut down the most egregious ones.
Correct. Anything else that would be removed, we'll replace it, but we can't replace trees in the exact location.
That was going to be
We can't plant for 5 years where we're taking these out because of the massive root system, so we're going to have to move over. For example, that's why one house has 2 trees and we want to replace it with 1 because we don't have room to put a tree back there.
That was my only question was, are we going to have to come back here if some of the ones that aren't close enough now grow?
As an association, we can't afford to do any more than this, and this is going to be a 3-year project, because the association's taking on the burden of removing these trees, and the ones we're looking at replacing are the legitimate trees in the right-of-way, okay? The ones we don't want to replace are the ones the homeowners legally own. We had to go get an attorney to draft an agreement for them to execute, just for us to go trim their trees. We're getting ready to trim all the trees this year. Then we'll start the removal process next year because we had to go up in the homeowners dues $100 this year just to trim these 81 trees.
Our whole I'm Doug Burns and I live right behind Gwen. Our whole HOA budget goes to maintain these trees.
Got it.
And so we're paying for a mess that was started how many years ago when the developer decided to put willow oaks right up next to their house.
Well, that's because that's what, the only thing they could plant were large maturing trees. The tree plan wasn't good. Because we were the first, probably one of the first neighborhoods with these really small lots, really tiny setbacks, and there wasn't the forevision to realize, oh, we need to look at this. Maybe they need small and medium maturing trees if we're going to require them, but not a tree that's designed for a parkway.
So they say they didn't plan accordingly. Understood, thank you. Do you have a bunch of guys in the community got chainsaws? I am deadly serious. I took
all the options now.
I
could use some volunteers.
Well, I tell you what, we call ourselves the Chainsaw Gang down in Reflection Point. Took over 100 trees down. Some of them actually fell where they thought they were going to go.
That's good to hear.
Well, from a liability standpoint, we have a good insurance guy who can take the small ones. We do have a couple small ones because the developer or the builder killed them and they were replaced. And a couple
Well, we got
others
permission
came
from
down.
everybody whose lot we went on, written permission for us to go on and take it down for them. Otherwise, they would have had to go clean up their own lot, and they said, permission granted, go right ahead.
Well, this is just phase one. We're not talking about taking any trees
Okay,
down
good.
until we get it approved.
Well, listen, and congratulations, I think, for being the HOA president.
Well, thank you. They told me I can never leave the neighborhood.
Yeah, I know you're doing a good job with that kind of recommendation. Do we have a motion here?
Before, I have one question for Shelley and/or the city attorney.
Yes.
And it might, or Melissa, I'm sorry. I saw in the report it said, well, the HOA wanted some money and you recommended not having it, and we don't have any say over that, the city council has to. Is that something that we'd even need to make a recommendation concerning? No? All right, in that case, I move to approve as set forth in the staff report.
Is there a second? Any further discussion, questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Good luck with your trees.
Thank you for a very detailed, comprehensive presentation.
Yes.
Yeah.
6 months of work.
Well, it's
paying off.
It helps when there's,
When you have all the facts.
yes.
We had only one injury too, by the way. One tree fell and cut a guy's head.
I'm not doing that. I'm your age. I know better than that.
It's worth $100 is what she said.
Oh, we did. We took down some pretty,
bet
about
you did.
60-foot trees.
Get more stuff.
Huh? We got, Shelley's going to give us a overview.
Well, I'm going to ask if I can make this a little shorter.
Sure, Reader's Digest condensed fan.
Let's see, I haven't had yeah.
So I have quite a long presentation, and my plan was to go over, what we do in our department for the entire year, and statistics, and there's other times we could do that, but what I'd like to hit on real quick here is, and I think I sent this out to a few, last year, we actually permitted 270 residential units, and that is a combination, though, of 3 apartment buildings for Aberfall, which is 102 apartments right there. So we had a high number of infill, which is great. Those are the 2 or 3 lot. Everybody was looking for infill lots, and we've gotten some beautiful infill projects. Aberfall has permitted last year 117 with the combination of their 3 buildings and townhomes. And if you haven't gone by to see that project, please do. They're getting closer to wrapping up the apartments, and it's
Coming together.
it looks nice.
Need to Travis that.
So, Belmont Reserved is about built out Belmont Village has 2 lots left, and the bulk of the single-family homes were in McLean, Conservancy, very fast pace, Conservancy and Overlake, and South Shore. If you haven't been in South Shore, it is starting to fill in. It's looking really nice with the custom homes there. Morgan's Branch, we issued 16. The company was bought out by another housing company, and they're kind of slow to start. Taylor Morris, we met with them, and they are taking over the project, but plan on getting started by doing a model home near the front.
Which one was that?
Morgan's
Branch.
Branch, that's on Lower
Yeah.
Armstrong.
Yeah.
You pass by there.
So they're doing a model on the South Point end?
No, they want to do a model home at the, there's 1 lot left off of their primary access in, or first access in on Lower Armstrong.
Okay.
And they said they have a model in the back in the last phase, but they want to put something closer up. So we're working with them. Subdivision build-out, I have to put my glasses on for this. So you can see the percentages on the far right based on the amount of permits, the lots or units approved, the total, thank you.
It's better. I'm here on the right.
Total vacant, and I'll email this out to you, so you can have this. But based on all the approved lots, and this includes like River Mist, who hasn't broken ground, that's 86. Town Square's under development, so you can see they haven't started building the homes, but out of all the number of approved, about 40, just over 40% has been built out.
So these are the active subdivisions?
Active, and that are approved, yes, that have gotten vesting and such, so.
The heading, a number of approved, total permitted?
Yeah, I'm sorry, it didn't translate over when I tried to bring it over in the PDF, but it was supposed to be the number of approved, and then that second total permitted should be the second column.
Oh, okay, because I was
Total
throwing.
vacant is the third column.
Need to touch the screen, it's getting dark.
And,
I think the TV did that too. The room is dark.
Oh, well, turn on so bright.
Turn the lights
And then
on.
the percentage built out, so yeah, the
Oh, that's better.
But I will email this out so you can see what's been approved, what's been permitted, how many lots are vacant.
Yeah.
And 41% has been built out of the 2,700.
I can't read that.
Check out.
Oh, sorry. Look
Yeah,
at it later.
I'd be curious to see what the number is without those who haven't started.
Okay, so
Just
you
look
want
at
those that have-
Check out the ones that are 0% right now and put them in one and
Okay. we'll do that.
subtotal it that way, just so you could, because I feel like it's much higher, obviously.
Well, yeah, it'd be a lot higher if we
like
took
60 or
out the zero
70%,
out. It would be,
Yeah.
yes, you're exactly right.
So that'd be
And the only reason we
curious.
put
That's still
them
not
on there is they either had construction plans approved and we're expecting them to break ground. They just haven't. So it's said occasionally that we're not doing a lot of long-range planning, or, are we doing
No, who would say
long-range
something like
planning? So, I want to touch on a few things that we're doing, and one has to do with transportation. So we actually, you don't see a lot of what we do, and we interact with various boards, regional boards and committee on, and excuse the writing inside, I was taking notes and I didn't have a clean one. So, transportation planning. So both Alec and I, we attend the TCC, which is regional planning, transportation planning for Gaston County. Actually, it's 3 counties, Gaston, Cleveland, and Lincoln County MPO. And we do that because we work in, they help us identify projects and get them ranked so we can try to get funding from NCDOT. So this little brochure provides a list of projects in our area. here, and that some of the crossed out in the different years are projects that have been pushed out for
Lack of money.
timeline. So, for example, the ones near us, of course, are, let me get this, the Catawba Bridge, correct?
Anybody ever notice those are happening at the same time?
No, they're not.
No. So what happened is, the bridge and the widening of 85 was coming in on the same time.
Yeah, I know.
So, the 85 was pushed out to allow time for the Catawba Bridge to be built.
Pushed out a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all those people that'll be going on 74.
That bridge is gonna take 18.
Go on 85.
No,
Yeah,
the
probably
other way around.
better than it was before. So we expect things to keep, DOT in all their wisdom, they realize that there's no way that that can happen at the same time, because everything on 85 is going to be detoured on Wilkinson. So the Catawba is going to be 6 lanes, and we've been working with the Catawba, or I'll call it the Wilkinson Bridge there. It's going to be 6 lanes. We're not clear on whether it's going to be 2 3-lanes or 1 6-lane.
Well, where's the light rail?
The light rail, based on early discussions with NCDOT, it will have its own separate bridge.
To the north, right?
Due primarily to the north,
Yeah.
primarily due to the vibration.
Interesting.
So, they are working with NCDOT, and they're hoping to do the environmental document for the bridge for the light rail the same time as the Catawba Bridge. Not sure that's going to happen. But we are meeting with NCDOT because it's rare when a community or a county has the opportunity to be involved with a new bridge, the gateway into Gaston County and to Belmont. So Gaston County, City of Belmont, City of Charlotte, as well as Mecklenburg County, we have been meeting to talk about the aesthetics of it, because this can be a signature bridge for us coming into Gaston County. And so we're coordinating that with NCDOT. In fact, we have our next meeting next Monday.
We had a presentation by some of these folks at the League Raleigh Marine Commission at our last meeting. One of the things that the police brought up, the Gaston County Police brought up, was make the bridge high enough so that my boat can get under, please. Thank you very much. So you might just
We'll
check
make sure that
check
we'll
with those,
double check
they-
that.
see if they're still on the
Is there any
ballot.
coordination for pedestrian?
Yes, there's planned at a minimum multi-use paths on both sides.
Excellent.
Lighting, there'll be a small, they do a lower barrier between the multi-use path and the travel lanes to help protect the cyclists or pedestrian. So we haven't seen the fine details, just because we as the various agencies, we actually get quite a bit of say-so with the design of the bridge. Now, saying that also includes we get to pay for a lot of the enhancements. Now, because it is currently a historic bridge, we already get more money than if it wasn't. So
To tear down the
so we
historic
get,
bridge?
woo! So we get some extra money for that.
Are you familiar with the Cornelius Bridge on
Yes,
Cobb Avenue?
yes.
Please don't do that.
No, we're not going to do some weird sale thing.
No, the intent was,
Yeah,
but the money, there was no money. And so
Yeah.
that's what you get when you run out of money.
yeah, no, that's
So we have a couple.
really.
You talking about overpass over
We have a couple
77?
of projects in
Yeah,
there.
they're actually
so-
this year that we got some intersection improvements. What are those?
Okay, so U 5800.
Yep.
Okay, so that is Main Street in Wilkinson. So we are still meeting on that project.
This is the no left turn
because
area, right?
Yes, because the NCDOT
No Michigan left.
subcontracted this out. We've already had public meetings, and it was revealed they wanted to do a Michigan left, which means there are no left turns at that intersection. You have to go through, do U-turn.
Oh.
So the
I'm
city.
from Michigan. Michigan lefts are terrible.
The city adamantly opposed it, and a lot of the residents, so we are meeting with them. In fact, Monday after our bridge meeting, we're meeting to talk about that project
and where we go from there.
This is at the Bojangles.
Yes, yes. Their design did not take into consideration our rail trail project or the trolley project.
That's a tight little stretch.
Yeah, they are limited.
You're going towards the Hardee's, you can't turn, there's no place to turn around.
No, there's no, you can't get across.
So we are still working on that one. That one may be delayed. So if we adamantly oppose and can't come to a consensus, we may say, well, we'll wait until the 85 widening and the bridge widening. Correct.
Lane, and
Everything
then
will
you turn
change,
around,
and we'll take a
and then
look
you go
at it
like
again
that.
at that time. So
Yeah.
we have that project. We actually have one at Clark in Wilkinson. And our concern was, they're just starting the environmental on that, and our concern was that if we allow them to do a Michigan left at Main Street, they're going to have to do it to be consistent.
why would
They
they
would
do
have to do, what, exactly, why would you do that? So that is in the early stages. That will depend a lot on what comes out at Main Street. So we do a lot of transportation planning. We also do some environmental. Ms. Mendoza, she's been attending the Citizens Water Academy.
Sounds like fun.
If you want to be recommended, let me know.
We've been learning about, we learned actually about shorescaping and looking at the opportunity to do some of that at the future park adjacent to the Catawba with the Belmont Rowing Center project. We have a 3-acre park that is part of that development, so we've been thinking through that. So next, you know where our wastewater treatment plant is?
I know exactly where it is, yeah.
So the Belmont Rowing Center got a total of 13 acres. And as part of working with the city for a FERC permit and such, they gave to the city 3 acres of that area.
The southern end of that.
The southern end of that, yes. So they're just trying to get ready to file the FERC permit, and we haven't.
Yeah, we're gonna go out and traipse through the woods here on Thursday.
Yeah, next week, yes. So, and part of that project, though, it does include a boathouse for Gaston Police and.
That's the
our
plan,
department.
that's the plan. The Gaston County Police boat, which doesn't have a place to put their boat, everybody else does, and also the Belmont City Fire boat. Belmont City Fire got a new truck, and when they hooked up the boat and the trailer to it, it stuck out the back end of the
firehouse.
So they said, we're looking for a place to keep it. I said, I got an idea for you. So Lake Wiley Marine Commission, of which Dan and I are members, are looking to help out in that regard.
So some of the other environmental, they're working on a recycling campaign. We are looking to apply for a grant to update our tree preservation ordinance. We presented that at the retreat to the city council. They support the request for the grant, so we're going to ensure that it identifies the right tree in the right space, so this doesn't happen 10 years from now. We have another neighborhood coming in. We, of course, are a member of Tree City USA, which Jamie Mendoza is the liaison to the Environmental Sustainability Board that ensures that we keep that designation. Melissa does health and all policies. Do you want to give a brief description of what that is? Come on. Come on.
I'll try to sum this up because it's a very interesting and complex topic. But when you look at our health outcomes and our life expectancy, it's been really surprising to learn that this topic is known as social determinants of health, comprise about 75% of our health outcomes. So basically what that means is the choices that we as individuals make about our diet and our exercise, our genetics even, is only 25% of what makes up our life expectancy, okay? And what we as planners and people interested in planning for a better community can do is make sure that we all have access to health care, that we all have a walkable community. There's there's so much more to it, but the bottom line is that this movement, which is really becoming more well-known and incorporated into decision-making, is to use health in all policies to make sure that the decisions we make have either a neutral or a positive impact on the health of our community.
Cool.
Okay.
And that makes up 75% of.
Yes, look into it, you'll be shocked. So,
Will be good.
there's
Yeah,
more to come on that.
My dad's like
Really
a
is on
QVB.
this topic, but that sums it up.
Does it make sense to you?
Okay.
We continue to work on our greenways, Abbey Creek Greenway, we have a grant for that, Melissa's the lead on that. That would be a greenway that connects Park Street to Kevin Lofton Park, and it would run parallel to Wilkinson. And we currently have a big project that you may even see next month of a multifamily development where a large segment of this greenway is on their property, which will help us advance this project if they build it to move forward.
Speaking of paralleling Wilkinson, there's that burned out building down there.
Oh, yeah, we're working on that too.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we got that.
It's all that land behind, all that, I can't
The
remember.
first row
family
at
name.
Wilkinson, it's all
Right.
that, yes, that land,
Behind
so.
Behind Walgreens,
Walgreens,
and then
yes,
runs behind everything
yes.
else, all that through there.
Yes,
It's
and
big.
they're working, it is, it has a lot of topography.
But it's real deep,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, a lot of topography, so that we've been working with these applicants for months. And at a future meeting, I'm gonna sort of go over that, what
Cool.
it takes. Anytime we get it to you, we've already worked on it for maybe 6 months with the applicant, so I'm just gonna share that with you. Long-range planning, we're working with the Parks and Rec Department on the update of the master plan, which was a item in our comprehensive land use plan implementation section, was to get that updated. And Melissa is our liaison to ensure that it's incorporated in keeping with our comprehensive plan. We work with economic development primarily through the Main Street program, as well as coordinating things with the Chamber and the Gaston County EDC. Of course, we always reference our implementation of the comprehensive land use plan. We will be providing a report at the next meeting identifying steps and tasks that we've achieved in that implementation plan for you to review. Also, as part of the light rail project, so we've worked very hard with CATS and Mecklenburg to figure out, to get the line on the map for the light rail. We also partnered with the City of Charlotte on an application for a TOD ordinance grant, which is $1 million grant. And what TOD, you familiar with that? So TOD is transit-oriented development. So usually whenever there's a light rail corridor, you adopt regulations like that, which allows higher density for ridership and more of an urban planning. So we would be focused on the Wilkinson corridor adjacent to that alignment for TOD ordinance. So.
But we would be developing our own TOD ordinance?
That's correct. So it's a partnership.
Yeah, because they're doing this right now.
We are not going to want our TOD ordinance to look anything like Charlotte. We're not Charlotte. And the grant is actually from Stallings all the way through Charlotte out to Belmont. So we'll all do our own that fits Belmont, and that would be coming through you. I'm sure we'll have to pull together a steering committee and so forth.
So there's some good momentum behind.
Yeah, there is.
The light rail.
So we are very excited about that. So.
What about the small area plan for what's the name of the congressman's land?
Pittenger property?
How many who?
You mean the South Fork Small Area Plan?
That would be the one. That would be the one.
Well, of course, that's adopted. We've had some recent inquiries about that.
Wait a minute, I thought that was going to come before us.
Well, it will.
Oh, okay.
So,
I thought you said it was adopted.
well, no, the small area
did. I thought we
plans,
had
we
it.
did. As part of the comp plan, there is a small area plan.
Oh, yeah, but then we gotta get
that
the details.
specific.
Correct. Yes, that's correct. So that's
Like the
more the
8-lane
master
highway they're gonna
plan,
put up there
yes.
to alleviate traffic.
So, that doesn't really happen until you have interested party in the the market
Right.
will drive when that comes in. But we have quite a few calls when they give us a call and they say,
Who were those guys that came and presented and said, we want to hold off presenting our plan until we have a chance to work this thing out? They were all sitting right there, and they said, when we agreed to
going to do the overlay.
the overlay, they
Right.
said, well, don't include us because we're going to come before you.
Right.
So this super whammadine thing that we want to
Well,
deviate perhaps.
what came out of that
Yeah.
is the city council went into a MOU for allowing them we put on pause that rezone
Right.
action to allow them to do the small area master plan
Right?
alongside us doing the comprehensive land use plan. So
Okay.
what they did was the small area plan and the comp plan,
Yeah.
they paid for, they hired the consultants,
Right.
and we ran it through with so that's been approved. So they kept their end, then of the bargain, and then we placed the zoning over there. If you remember, we placed a zoning overlay on that property to
Oh, I
tie.
thought we didn't place it over that.
But
we did later.
for the overlay. We did not, so there are two overlays in the peninsula.
Okay.
One is the South Point Peninsula overlay, and that's what they objected to.
Yeah, they didn't want to do that because they wanted to mess up whatever they wanted.
So, and then with the small area plan, we created, and it came through the board,
Yeah.
a South Fork small area plan overlay. So what that does is it ties the regulation to this guiding document, so we have a connection.
Scott Koblenz.
Huh?
Was that Scott Koblenz?
Yes, that was Scott.
Yeah, so they did the overarching development plan as a small area plan, and now they are trying to pitch that and get people to buy in. Developers come and buy into their
This
small
area is the multifamily, this area is the single family, and we'll get different ones.
The plan and the TIA and
No
all
one guy's
that
gonna
is
do it
when the
all.
market,
Yeah.
somebody wants to buy it and say, yeah, okay, I'm gonna develop this. I see the guiding
Does
document.
anybody know how wide the roads have to be before they do that?
Well, no, because
You don't know how many houses they're gonna
Yeah.
put in there.
yeah, so someone may
Yeah,
turn
that
around, we
one.
have a guiding document that says, okay, all this should be single family, we want the village centers here, we
Right.
know we need the network
Right.
thing, and before you get to Stark, you gotta do a TIA at the
Right.
beginning.
Right.
So someone could come in and say, you know what, this is gonna be a great golf community. I'm just gonna do this big golf community and this, and so they'll do a traffic study for the whole thing based on what their plan is.
Well, some of us are of the opinion, maybe me and somebody else, I don't know, but at least me, that there isn't any way that the South Point Road is ever going to get widened.
Well, speaking of that, hold on.
And that we need to have a parallel road through that small area plan that is very wide.
It's not on there yet, you're right, it's not on that, but, okay. So part of the transportation planning that we do is we identify projects to try to get ranked, to get on DOT STIP
List.
list, so then it can get in the STIP and funded, and so they're getting ready to, we've submitted our, what they call the P6 coordination. What that does is that's planning for transportation projects 2022 to 2031.
Okay.
So we're just trying to get a project in there. So what we done.
To widen South Point Road?
Yes. So what we, in discussing South Point Road with the MPO, with transportation planners, the city's consultant was there. We all talked about, okay, how do we get South Point on the list? And historically, it's my understanding that we've always submitted the whole thing, and it didn't rank very well. So what we propose to do is to break it up
in segments where the bulk of the development's next to it coming out and so forth. So in the P6, we propose South Point Road from R.L. Stowe to Bellwood Drive, and that would get it to where the school's going to have the signal in there to get it widened. Then from there, it would go from Bellwood to Henry's Chapel, would be the next segment, and then Henry's Chapel to Lower Armstrong Road. So that's planned in there, as well as, let me see which project this is. We have on there Park Street at Keener and Catawba. We were looking at improving that intersection. They're adding some turn lanes to it. That, we're submitting that one.
Would that include pedestrian too?
Yes, well,
Walk across
actually,
there?
the pedestrian's ahead of this project. So we've already, we're waiting to sign the agreements with NCDOT. We told them that we would partner with them on, the city will partner with them in the cost of the ped heads. They would implement the project, but we're waiting for the contract and the fine details to come. We need to look at the design and find out what that price tag, but it's been programmed in the city's CIP project for pedestrian enhancements, not only there, but at this intersection here. We have this blind corner here,
You
so
walk around
that's the same thing down
the
here
Stowe
in Maine.
building. You gotta look around the corner.
Yeah, you gotta
Before you step out.
go around
Yeah,
the
and
corner.
so, yeah, you have like this much
Yeah.
space.
Yeah, so
Sure,
we were
I'll
gonna
take
do
care.
like a
Good.
bump out, and we had
Good,
looked at
yeah.
designs, and we, again, we're partnering with NCDOT of these projects ahead of the roadway projects. So let's see, real quick, which other ones here that would be of interest? Woodlong and Belmont, Mount Holly Road. Woodlong, we have a lot of interest. We have a lot of land up there that's zoned for like light industrial. And it is just not, the roadway's not sufficient to support it. The Oaks is one industrial park over in that area, but again, we have all this land, and part of the struggle is we have a TIA policy. So when something's proposed and they do the TIA, you know, it hinders the economic development of that area. So we identified that as one of the P6 projects. And let's see, we have a couple of other smaller ones, including to really evaluate the Belmont Mount Holly loop through that 1,100 acres, you know, to
Loop around.
yeah, it connects up, it goes through the 1,100 acres in that small area plan, so we want to really look at that. So we continue to try to move projects up. We're asking them to rescore the traffic circle at the intersection of South Point and Lower Armstrong, so to see if we can't get the funding moved up or
traffic
something on
circle,
that. Yes. We did meet, there's a new division engineer in Shelby, a very young gentleman, and I think he's very nice. We've talked to him about South Point Road specifically, Armstrong Road, trying to, I'm like, you make me happy if you find a pot of money, which is, you know, call me. So he's really going to try to work with us. So we do a lot of planning that you don't see, whether it's in transportation or environmental or other areas. We have a very small staff. We are a small staff for the amount of work we produce. So we push out a lot of work. So thank you guys.
What is the, what amount of units, homes, do you get a TIA kicked in?
It's based on threshold of trips, and I would say I think 100 units typically would trip that, but in our TIA ordinance, depending on where it's proposed, it gives a lot of discretion to staff. So if it's on the peninsula and they're saying, now I'm going to come in with 95 because that doesn't meet the threshold, we'll say, no, you still need to do it. So
from our, and I'm going back to 4 or 5 months ago when Henry's Chapel subdivision, it's 600 lots. I'm gonna keep a tab now. We just approved 209. 600 kicked in widening South Point Road. And if I get a 50 and a 50 and a 50 and a 50 that doesn't require TIA, where does that
Well,
get
that
us?
is why we adopted the TIA the way we did. If we get a 50,
Right.
if we get a 50, 70, and it's anywhere on South Point Road, we're gonna say, hey, you gotta do a TIA. There's another project ongoing on Tucker Road, it's 140-something lots. But it actually submitted way before a TIA policy. We told them we wouldn't support it going through unless they went ahead and did a study, and they did a study, you know, so.
I think it's, for South Point Road, it's just, anybody wants to
Yeah.
build anything there, you can do a TIA. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, we had one project for 20 lots, and that was, I think, Sid's Mill, that was the one that was annexed and so forth. We didn't require one for the 20
Well, I guess it
lots,
gets to the
but,
point, at what point does it stop?
yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but when we did the TA ordinance, there was no way that we could aggregate money from multiple projects into a pot, right? So we had to do it as an incremental
Okay.
five-project improvement. And so, like, for example, tonight, we just approved that project, got the TIA. I didn't ask this in the meeting because I knew it was going to open a can of worms that we can't really address in that meeting forum, but if there are 3 projects approved on that stretch of road, and they're getting individual TIAs, and we can't lump money into an aggregate pot, how do they address that in terms of making improvements on the same intersections across different projects?
We actually can.
Oh, we can?
Yes.
Okay.
DOT won't hold the money, but we can put money in an escrow account, and that is in the ordinance.
Oh, it is?
So,
Okay.
for example, Aberfall, they donated, well, they say they donated, but they provided $75,000 towards future improvements at the Catawba-Wilkinson
Right.
intersection.
Gotcha.
Now, what's happening, so we put that in an escrow account. What's happening, of course, we got the bridge project coming, and their study areas pass and through that intersection. So our goal is to try to get that project
To do
moved up, so everything's done at once. And hey, we're going to contribute, and it scores better that way. So we do have that
Good.
ability, but everything's timey. You know, so if this is the
I
only
agree.
thing happening in the area for the Worrells River, all their improvements are strictly in their development. There isn't really any major widening. They are going to enhance the traffic circle. Get that done. Get that done, because we're unaware of some other big project, and we're actually the only jurisdiction that, we actually make them study outside our jurisdiction, so.
So that's when they went all the way up to Union.
Yeah, they went all the way up to Union, and well, based on the outcome of NCDOT's opinion about that, would have to put in that right turn lane outside our community. But what we're hearing is all the other jurisdictions now are adopting our policy.
Cool.
So it should help.
And do we have the discretion, so for example, like the one we just approved, I mean, they got plenty of runway before they actually start putting a shovel in the ground.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, it's very feasible, another 200-unit development could pop up somewhere over there, and say the
Well,
lady to the
certainly
north just
up
decides
there,
to.
they're trying to do 1,000, or
Yeah.
what is it?
Oh, yeah, that, whatever.
That's not far from there.
Yeah.
It's Lake Wiley Road.
So I'm assuming we have the discretion, based on the timing, to say if that, you know, that, say the roundabout improvements.
Right.
If that overlapped with something that came down the road a year from now, and we knew that, you know, their timing and their timing were slightly off, we had the discretion to take that discrete piece and put it in an escrow to combine those pieces?
Absolutely, and
Okay.
my guess would be DOT would want us to do that.
Okay.
You know, if they knew this other project's coming online, it's gonna overlap, let's put everything in one pot and get it all done.
Project scores better.
So on the traffic study that was just presented, it was not required to go all the way to Armstrong and South Point?
I can't.
Because they didn't make any improvements to it, so.
Right, no, I don't.
And to me, there's a problem here.
I'm sorry. Let me look at
Yeah,
the
it just was
traffic
on, it was just on South New Hope.
Yeah, it was
So it
South-
was just at
so-
Lower and South New Hope,
So
up
where do
to
they think all
Union.
those people are going, South Carolina?
No, there's a distribution factor that is approved by all parties, including NCDOT, the city's traffic engineer, and so forth. And we have a requirement of intersections within a particular area have to be studied, and apparently that one was outside of the area, if it wasn't studied.
Well, that's,
Yeah, well, that.
planned and funded is two different things.
Yeah.
If this guy comes, he's got to fund it.
Mhm.
So I don't, to me, if it's planned, that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
I'm just curious now, if we have a major development on South Point, Lower South Point, will it also encompass what we just approved, or is it outside of that radius?
Well,
Probably
the
wouldn't.
intersection.
It's outside now, it'd be
Okay,
outside
so-
then, wouldn't it?
So the way it works.
Well, that's the problem.
Is the intersections may be outside of that distance, but they have to consider all approved TIAs in that area that have been approved as background trips when they start their analysis. So every time a project goes through, or a TIA started, they come in and meet with us and they, what projects have been approved. So they know what traffic is coming. They may not have broken ground, but it's an approved project, so we have to take into account their trips as well.
So does that happen now that Henry's Chapel then, they've done that study?
Henry's Chapel has never really gotten past a sketch plan, so they did a sketch plan, and we were still working with them on that, and they did the traffic study. The traffic study came back and just said, okay, you need to 4-lane. You want to do 600 home, you need to 4-lane it all the way up to R.L. Stowe and put in all the signal and so forth. And that just basically shelved
unfeasible.
it's unfeasible,
Right.
yeah, the numbers don't work,
So
and they
that's how-
shelved it. So that's how
part
it
of it,
works.
yeah.
So
Right,
it's like, okay,
I understand, but it's like,
but just so you know,
pockets that I'm worried
what they
about.
were hoping is, they went up on shelf, I'll say that their project got shelved, but they were waiting for the TIA of the school to come out to see what improvements the school was going to do. Because that's all up in this urban area and part of their improvement, so they were like, okay, the school does this, then that brings our cost down, then is our project feasible? But the unique case of a school in the state of North Carolina, their traffic studies and their improvements are only dictated by the state, NCDOT. So it doesn't matter what your traffic study says. The division, there's a special division that reviews TIAs for schools. And if they come back and say, the only thing's warranted is the signal and left turn lanes, and they do that because they have to pay for it. The schools, based on the state law, aren't responsible for any transportation improvement. So although there were other improvements identified, so when that information, they got the TIA, and we shared the TIA with the Henry's Chapel team, and then, after they had their discussions, we've had some inquiries. Apparently that property's up for sale again, because we've had some inquiries about that property.
Thank you for the
Sure.
update.
Sure.
And if there's some stuff that you wanted to tell us and we can fit it in next time after the other, that'd be fine
Yeah.
too. Whatever.
Yes, I appreciate that.
Anybody else have any other business for the board? Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved and seconded. Meeting's adjourned.
You want to improve water quality on Lake Wiley? Have the state actually put in erosion control measures when they do work. They do not, they're not required.
Are they
to.
exempt?
Yes.
Exempt from that?
I have a project over on the other side of Lake Wiley that we have to do what is it called? It's the higher level of a